This is the new Acorn Electron. It's powerful, it's versatile, and it's only £199. But there's one feature that will make it particularly welcome in homes all over Britain. It speaks the same language as most school children, BBC Basic. The Electron. Now your children can teach you all they know. The Acorn Electron can be found at local Acorn dealers and major high street stores. Just call 200 0200 for your nearest stockist.
Hello everyone and welcome to the RGDS podcast. I am your host Gordon King, also known as Kingy, and joining me in this special episode is a good friend of mine. You maybe heard him in a couple of episodes previous when he was on about hacking the little Game & Watch. It is Alistair McMillan. Welcome my good sir, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm very well, sir. Thank you very much for having me again.
Oh, great to have you. I mean, you're a regular in Discord, you're a high score champion down on, arcade club sometimes, Oh, you're a devious bugger. You lure people in, you let them beat you by an achievable score, and it's like 11:59 just before closing time. He sneaks in and then beats your score.
Yeah, by 100 points. There you go.
That's the way to do it. Yeah, cool. Anyway, so this episode, as you've probably seen on the advert for it or on the bulletin for the whatever podcast hosting client you use, this is dedicated to the Acorn Electron. It is a continuing series episode because way back in March, Rick and I covered another 8-bit Underdogs one, which was the Atari 8-bit. So we'll want to continue doing this. Apologies for taking so long to return to this concept, but we thought this time round the Acorn Electron was a perfect underdog to discuss its games and the system itself, because it really seldom gets spoken about. It's very much overshadowed by the BBC Micro, but more than that in a little bit. But before going to the main episode, Al, as always, as we like to ask, what have you been up to retro-wise yourself?
A few things, actually, I guess, in preparation for this podcast, actually, was I dug out an Acorn Electron, I think actually one that you kindly donated to me.
That's right, yeah.
Have a look at it.
One.
Yeah. So it's been sitting gathering dust for a little while, and I thought, you know what, about time I actually powered this thing up, if it's safe to do that. So gave it a good strip down. Yeah, gave it a very good strip down first. It was absolutely disgusting.
This is computer strip down now you're on about, yes?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
You don't fix the Acorn naked. Yeah, that's fine.
Well, not often, no. So the Acorn, it was absolutely bogging. So gave it a really good deep clean, dismantled the entire keyboard, took it all apart, cleaned out the motherboard and everything as well, and had a good look around it. So amazingly, I powered it on and it worked. So, and it was even from that first moment, it was just the beep that it makes when it powers up. Brought back a flood of memories, which was really nice to hear. So I guess I've been taking a look at that and all the games that we've been talking about that we'll come to later on in this episode. And yeah, I've been doing loads of stuff, buying tapes off eBay and games off eBay from back in the day. I got a fabulous boxed Elite copy the other day.
Did you? How good nick is it in then?
The box itself, not bad, bit tatty around the edges, but it's got the full poster, which is in really nice condition with all the ships, which is great. It's got the book, the flight training manual, the novella.
Well, you need that anyway, isn't it? Because is that how?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important to read the novella and get a flavour for it. I think it was.
Oh, for sure.
It was very important. It's a bit like Lords of Midnight, and novella that came with that as well. It just adds context to the universe you're in, isn't it?
Definitely. And the really important piece is it's got two things. It's got the one that's a little sort of the little strip of paper which goes across the top of the keyboard, reminding you of all the buttons.
Oh, how good? What's the condition of that then? Because
that's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty decent. I mean, it's a wee bit beaten up, but it's pretty good. So yeah, launch, front, bicargo, all sort of short keys you can do.
Aye.
And then the little summary of controls, which, yeah, because there's like about 1 million of them. So yeah, it's really nice. I haven't actually tried loading this particular copy yet, but I have played off one of the other ones that I got. So
Cool.
yes, that was really, really good.
Does the Acorn version come with the lens lock at all?
No, it doesn't.
Nobody pirated them because there was not a copy in piracy scene for the Acorn Electron.
Not back then. Not
Stephen,
back then, dog.
Stephen Pikeys that were on the Spectrums.
Exactly. It's all the specky boys, weren't it?
Yeah, us thieves that were.
Yeah. So I did. So that came the other day, and then I saw a really cheap bargain bin basement. Someone had like 23 cassette tapes on sale for, which had a bunch of actually copied games and various other things. So
Cool.
I took a punt on that for a tenner. Thought it was worth the try, and I've since discovered, unfortunately, when the Acorn has powered on for more than about half an hour, I seem to have a fault somewhere, which I'm now troubleshooting. So I think it's a memory chip. So I've got 4 memory chips, which actually arrived yesterday. So
How much
I will
did those
probably.
cost?
Oh, that was like the princely sum of $5.99.
What
including the sockets.
What an
so not
age to
bad.
be alive that you can fix your old, failing retro gear with components that are still produced, and you can whack them in and give it the TLC it requires.
Yeah. So fingers crossed that'll keep it going. So a few of the games that we're talking about today, I did actually load up properly from tape and play on the original, and and the rest of them were in the emulators that we'll talk about.
A nice mix and balance. How did you find the? I mean, you're kind of alluding to the fact that I did not look after this device, but it was passed on to me. So my house isn't, well, it can be a bit manky at times because I'm too busy recording bloody podcasts to do the tidying. But, I barely resided in this house. I just knew a person that I wanted it, and I was, will I use it? And I was like, no, I'd rather give it to someone who I knew was their first computer, and it was an important thing for them to have. Big memories, but that's equally an important reason to bring, where possible, on these obscure system episodes, bring someone in with a background with it, because it can give it a lot more than just speaking about, I've got memories and experience of it, but not to the degree of yourself. And it's like any of these computers, it deserves the discussions, So
definitely,
it's good you went down this rabbit hole. Get some physical, and after all this time, these cassettes are loading. You're having the anticipation of that. Will it load? Will it not? And it's great. It's
definitely been hit and miss. And I think it's another parcel drops through the door. Another rolling set of eyes from my wife. I feel sorry for her sometimes, but there you go. So
poor Mrs. M, I'll tell you. But. Yeah, I think all our wives are like that. They just suffer our little hobbies here. Well, we don't go buying shoes, though, do we? Or handbags or any crap like that. This is our thing, So cool. So myself,
what have you been up to?
Oh, not a lot really this time round, because this is quickly off the back of the Spectrum episode, which was a quite quick turnaround, because it just arrived, and it's like, well, it's arrived now, we may as well do an episode on it. So I hope Paul and I did that one justice and people have enjoyed that episode. So it's great just to jump from one 8-bit computer to the next. So to be honest, between wanting to a tighter time constraint to the Crash magazine, because obviously everybody wants to shut down for the Christmas holidays now at the time of year we're at, there's less time, the deadline's tighter, so it's like, I've got a lot done. So between doing Crash, recording this with you, editing this, it's like, that's it, enough's enough. I want to sit down over the Christmas period and enjoy games that I want to play all these games, don't get me wrong, but you know what I mean, the stockpile of games that you've bought for an intention to play that you haven't had a chance to yet. I want to do that.
Yeah, that's good. I was going to say one last thing, actually. Maybe we can. But I had one of my big bosses over from the US over recently as well. So he was hilarious. He sent me a text before he headed over and said, "Oh, I found one of these in my father-in-law's garage," and it was a picture of an Intellivision. I'd actually just recently fixed one up anyway. So he said, "Would you like it? was like, yeah, sure, if it's not too much trouble. And he says, no problem at all. I will bring this bit of rubbish. Sorry, I mean treasure. I'll bring it with me. So he dropped that off with me at work this week, which was good. So I haven't had a chance to take it apart or see if it works or anything, but it's in pretty good nick. But it remembered me that I need to actually have a look at I did a PCB-Way circuit board from one of somebody's GitHub projects, a guy called Otto Vianney, and he has designed a little PCB circuit board that you can solder a few components onto, and a little Pico board as well, and it'll take all the Intellivision games onto it. So a little sort of copy cartridge.
Could you share that link with me and I'll put it in the show notes?
Yeah, I'll put it in there for sure. That'd be great.
Good to see.
Yeah, so that's coming soon. So who knows? Maybe we can hook up and play some of those games too. Which are pretty
I wish
cool.
I had a boss like that. I'll tell you. That's amazing. That's good.
Yeah.
Wow. The gift that keeps on giving me. Your bosses like that.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I think they'll know that I'm interested in these things. So
that's
whenever
good.
they find some old tat, they bring it up.
Well, that's the interesting part over in America then, where your bigger bosses are flying over from. There you go with a whole different gaming culture there. From that period, the early 80s, it was a very different machine there. So
very, very much so. I mean, it was that and the ColecoVision, I think, seemed to be, and then the Atari stuff afterwards. So
so
the things we grew up with, like the Spectrum and the Acorn, didn't really get a look in over there.
No, so that's good. So on to the main episode itself. So as we said, it's all about the Acorn Electron. But before we go into it itself, we need to take a little step back and look at the BBC Micro, and there's a reason, you see, because you've had Acorn already out with its reasonably successful Atom computer that came out in 1980. So it pipped a lot of the micros that we were used to the post coming out really early. I mean, only really the Atari 8-bit came out in 79, and then there's this one in 1980, and it had gained some traction. But at the point they're working on its successor, the Proton, the BBC had put out to tender looking for a computer to be built for them that will tie in with the literacy project that they were going to broadcast on television. Now, I mentioned this on the last episode actually, and it's just as much pertinent for this. So again, share the show notes links to the archive footage from all those educational programs on programming the BBC Micro. So anyway, Acorn successfully won the bid to produce. So really what was going to become the Proton then was developed further into creating the wonderful BBC Micro. That at that point then, Al, because you're the same age as me, it just exploded in the early 80s. We all saw them in our primary schools, didn't we? I mean, there maybe be just one or two in our schools that it was booked for the class to use. I remember, like I said in the previous podcast, the janitor would wheel it along to the class and we get a lecture from the teacher about how to respect it. This is new technology. This is the future. We don't want any damage done to it. But we didn't. It's not like the kids now who, obviously with me supporting IT in schools, the vandalism and damage you can actually see is unbelievable. Smash screens, pick keys, expletives spelt because people have rearranged the keys on the keyboard. You can imagine.
Yeah.
So this was just this amazing thing that was different from chalk and talk that we all received at this point. It's an understatement to say how important I think this stage of bringing computers into our awareness in school was. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I still remember the first time I think we had one. I can't remember exactly. It was P6, P7, something like that, and they wheeled in this big, massive telly as well, and they had a few of these things. And then you moved on to first year at high school as well, and we were very lucky to have an entire lab, so a whole classroom. They were the entire way around the side. And, the teachers, I think the enthusiasm the teachers had as well at that point, because this was all new, right? So they were really excited by it as well, and that really came off for the kids too. So so much interest in what we could do, and a kind of an amazement as well, I think, about what were these amazing sort of beige boxes. I mean, they were massive, but
they were indeed. It was a gorgeous thing. I mean, you cannot deny how great the keyboard is in the BBC Micro. Real mechanical like keyboard in its time. You know, proper keys anyway. The Microvitic monitor, the visuals, the sounds. It was great. Remember playing educational games like Granny's Garden and whatnot with it. It was really good. But so there you go. This device is successful. It's put on the map, and like you said, you saw it in high school. Same with me, right? This thing existed right into the 90s and supported through to the 90s. I got the job in a school, and all of a sudden I am fixing and repairing these things. You know what I mean? It's still in existence because I think
the number of boards that it had for I/O and stuff was just ridiculous.
Exactly.
The amount of expandability it had, wasn't it?
Yeah. The interfaces you connected to, the programmable turtle, ever remember that? Or the Doomsday Project, Laserdisc things for it. It was incredible, and lots of great educational software. Brilliant games for it as well, but that was more in high school in your lunchtime, sitting playing all these arcade ports on that. But not to move away from the Electron itself, obviously, so there it is, a very successful Acorn machine badged as a BBC corporation, hugely successful, much to the envy of Chris Curry, who was a co-founder with Herman Hauser of Acorn, right? So he had, I mean, if you watch Micromen, the biopic, if you want to call it that, is really good, and it shows the early years of, Chris Curry working for Clive Sinclair in the 70s. There's a big fallout of them, and he founded his own company then. But the trouble is, come 1980, 82, 83, the Spectrum's got a huge gaming market. Clive Sinclair's envious because he doesn't want that. He wanted that BBC market. He saw it more educational. He doesn't want Jet Set fucking Willy, as to quote the movie show.
But we all do.
Yes, exactly. We all wanted Jet Set Willy. On the other hand, here's Chris Curry. He's already had success, but not really his branded name. It's not as synonymous, even though we knew it. It was said on Acorn underneath, if I remember correctly. But it's not the Acorn moniker there on a product. So he's wanting a piece of the gaming market. But the reason the Spectrum got the gaming market is because it produced at that time the most cheapest computer out there. So here's Curry going, right, okay, what can Acorn do then? Successfully done that. With no point in competing on a market we've already dominated under our own product anyway with the BBC. We want a piece of the gaming market. Let's make a really essentially a BBC Lite is the best way to describe it. So crudely. For sure. I mean, the architecture.
It's almost like it's weird, isn't it? It's almost like they just chopped the back of the BBC off. Really. But it was weird. But it was weird as well, because then you could also buy. And I didn't know this until much later, as I've been looking at the Acorn again, with sort of fresh set of older eyes, if you like. But that they actually brought out the +1 expansion, which kind of almost makes it look like the BBC again, with this big add-on on the back, which is hilarious.
I mean, it obviously can reduce it in size because it didn't need the internal power supply. They just created an external power adapter. So, like we're used to in all of our home micros that we had in its time, still based around the 6502 processor. That's equally the same, but there is no sound chip like the BBC had, so it's only got a one-channel beeper internal speaker, a bit like the Spectrum, so it's hamstrung on this. One of the biggest problems with the Electron and comparing it, because you go, well, why would you need the BBC? Because they've both got 32 kilobits of RAM, right? There's two similar machines, same amount of RAM memory. Okay, one doesn't have as good sound, it's got the same processor. People go, right, surely it must run BBC games. It's the same thing. Not quite. I think a few things work, but it doesn't quite work like that. Because the way, the operating system was used to optimise the memory in the BBC, that ran with, there was smarter internal systems running that processed that a lot better, a lot more efficient, and gave more of the memory to the computer or the programmers that wanted to use. The Acorn, albeit similar OS, wasn't refined in the same way, and it really limited any programmer just to 20 kilobytes on the computer, which really hamstrung it. And just the way the instruction sets then ran, some games or many games ran a lot slower, so it's problematic that way. So no, all in essence, it looks like a similar computer on paper. There are differences enough that the software had to be rewritten for it that was on the BBC, basically, because no sound chip, therefore they had to reprogram that. So games were rewritten, reworked to work on the Acorn Electron.
Yeah, the interesting thing about and interesting that I've learned again about the tapes that we got back in the day there was quite often it would be whatever game, whether it be Thrust or Jeff Cape's Strongman, whatever it is, right? It would actually have BBC/Electron. And I was like, oh, cool, is it the same thing? No, it's not. It's one side was the Acorn game and one side was the BBC.
That's right. That confused me for years as well.
Yeah.
I think,
Got to choose the right side.
Same thing, yes. Just use the correct side. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think I ever even seen anyone loading cassettes on the BBC Micro, to be honest, because it came with, I mean, you had to buy it, but I knew a few of the richer kids that had the BBC, and they had the floppy disks, so the speed games loaded that noise, that almost sounds like it's protesting when it's loading, isn't it? Wow, this was the stuff of the future, but for the meantime, us minions had to put up with cassette and the duration that games took to load. It was just part of the time. It didn't really bother you that much. You'd loaded and that was it on, and you'd done other things like read the instruction pamphlet or read Wizard and Chips or whatever where the game was loading. Well, it meant to be doing your homework, but no. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on the sort of background of it at all before we move on to our own experiences.
I don't think so. No, I think you've covered over a good part of the history there. So yeah.
I mean, I think, to be honest, because they were so successful with the BBC, and that was really our first huge exposure to a computer, being young and being at school, that I think the name Acorn is synonymous with computing. I think it's a very good name, and I wish it was a brand that still existed today, you know what I mean, and producing modern laptops and whatnot, but it wasn't to be. I was envious of people who had them in name only. I hadn't really played the games much until friends started getting them, but by that point I had my own Spectrum, so I was chuffed and excited for it. I was having my own slice of the microcomputer pie here, just with a different computer. But I had a few friends that did have the Acorn. Their parents made what they thought at the time was an informed choice. It was affordable. The price was cut down as well, just similar to the Spectrum. So you can't blame parents for doing that. It may be that they're equally as familiar with that Acorn brand, and there is confidence and familiarity with a product name. Of course, that's the ultimate in marketing in that way. So good for them for buying it. I mean, we'll all slag off computers, but it's not our place to insult what other parents were able to afford.
Well, that's the thing. That it was definitely, it was cheaper than a BBC, but it was still just under £200. So it was an expensive sum of money back then. And I mean, I remember my dad coming back late '83 with it, and I've asked him recently when I brought this one that I got off yourself, brought back to life, and I was like, what made you choose that? And he was aware of BBC with the Model B at the schools and all that sort of stuff, and he was like, it was just too expensive. But this was a recommendation from somebody at his work, so this is what he came back with one day. And I still remember we were like in awe, oh my God, look, we've actually got a home computer. So this was fantastic. And that was quite a nice memory, and it was good to catch up with my dad and speak to him recently about that, and what made him choose this, and ultimately it's a random conversation with one of his colleagues at work. So.
So what was the first game then you fired up when you brought it home?
Oh, goodness me! I don't even know if we had a game.
you had to program your own. That's
pretty much.
Tough
I seem to recall. I seem to recall the manual and everything else, and basically sitting at that Acorn Electron basic prompt and starting to type into basic. You're going away, and it was copying some stuff out of one of the manuals that came with it. We just got some beeps coming out of it. I do remember programming, programming is the right word for it, but making it beep away to the funeral death march. Dad, listen to this.
Brilliant.
So that was fun. And we had a lunar lander type game. I don't know if that was one again that I typed in, or if that was one that came with it. I honestly can't remember, but just the sort of the mountainous terrain, a line around the bottom of the screen, and the little spaceship floating gently down, and you had to, put the thrust on, stop it from crashing.
So
those were the ones I remember. Right
paint
from when we
the
first
picture
had it.
here. Then was it just plugged into the living room TV, and you're all just lying on the floor playing it? Just
we were quite lucky. So we had quite a nice house at the time, and a spare sort of lounge, if you like, and a 14-inch TV. I seem to recall.
Okay.
So it was kind of put on its own sort of pedestal almost, with all of us around about it. So very lucky in that way.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you're not the only one in the house. You had siblings, so was it a battle over it then?
Well, I was the eldest, so I was at it.
End of.
I think, to be honest, it was. I mean, me and I've got three siblings, so 2 brothers and a sister, and I think it was me and my other brother who were the most interested. We were about 18 months apart, so we were on it most of the time. The other two were a little bit little, really. It's probably about 8 years or so between me and them. So they were a little bit small, really, to be even interested. But me and my brother played on it a lot together as well. And as we come on to some of the games, we'll be talking about how you even cram 2 people over the same keyboard, which was great fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So,
and what about yourself?
There was one guy I specifically remember in primary school, and there was one guy later on in high school who still had his then. So, yet again, as I said, for many friends, I gravitated towards friends with computers simply because it was common interest, wasn't it? Wasn't just the people with the same computers you can do tape swapping and copy each other's games. I was as equally as interested in going to their house, really excited actually. Oh, this person's got a Dragon 32, this person's got an Acorn Electron, and I found that really exciting that, you're invited around for perhaps, come straight after school, you get your tea here, and you can play the computer. And like yourself, sometimes I had lounges, sometimes it was a living room, sometimes it was a bedroom, it varied. And I specifically remember playing things like, Chucky Egg, and some, we'll get onto the sort of arcade ports, your Space Invader type things or Frogger things or whatnot. All these things, and just loving it simply because it was new and exciting at the time. And like with all the 8-bit microcomputers of their day, they had different loading sounds, they had different, aesthetically they were different, they felt differently. Graphics, the color palettes were different.
Some are very different.
Yes, I know. Some have bizarre choices, but it doesn't matter. The thing was, it was a revolution going on in the early 80s where these things were being produced, and there was affordability. Money was slightly coming back. I mean, the country was still in its arse from the 70s, but still a lot of money. Especially you've got siblings, like you said, same with me, were able to afford. And there was no way then I was going to, even if I thought the computer was inferior to the one I had, there was no way I was going to slag it off to that person, because their parents worked hard for that. I respected that. Even as a young age, I knew how expensive these were and how much respect a computer deserves. I always still to this day respect the technology I have. it's even. I know. I'm moving to the side slightly. I bought a full size Marshall guitar cab years ago when I was in the 90s, and I've played with bands over the years. And you meet up with other people when they're older, they've reformed bands, and you play with them, and they're going, "You've still got that cabinet? How you still got it? Mine's I'm 2 3 in. It's all broken because I respect my technology. You know what I mean? And when it's broken, I know how to fix it as well. Look after it. Yeah. So it's the same with that. Much respect to these computers of the time, and great memories. To be honest.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of my friends at school at the time, I don't think anybody had an Acorn. Actually, thinking back to it now,
you were that kid.
I was, oh God, what am I? Oh no, that's not good. I was that guy. Oh,
you were that guy, yeah.
Everybody had, I think pretty much, there was a few Commodore folks, Commodore 64s, there was a few people had the Spectrum. And I, to be fair, I mean, I loved the Acorn back then. I mean, I took up some programming on it, and we used to get the Input magazine, the weekly magazine for £1 and all that stuff, you know, typing in listing after listing and cursing at it when it wouldn't work, and then we're realizing it didn't work because they'd misprinted something and they'd fix it, and you know, the next episode of If You Like, oh my God. So you'd be banging your head. And then one of them in particular, typing in, it was like a weekly saga to get this game in, you know. And it was week after week after week, and it was teaching you different things, and it got to near the end and it was an almost working game, and then it basically left you hanging. It said, now you've been through all this, you'll know how to finish this off. And I was like, I have got no idea. What are you doing to me? You couldn't go online, nobody else. I'm like, oh well, that's it. So I was but looking at my friends who all had Spectrums, I mean, that was where I was wanting to move to next, right? As much as I loved the Acorn and the stuff that had it, there really wasn't much of a swapping of games with friends because nobody else had one. So,
or a culture, you know,
or
subculture.
Yeah. So it really was. All my friends were talking about Spectrum stuff and Commodore, and it was like, so I started saving up actually to get that. I never even got one in the end, but that's a different story.
But you know, for the time it was yours. It was your window to different worlds. That's the point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, you can look back now and scoff on it, but you can look back in any of our old games and scoff on them all, even the deemed better computers. So, no, much respect. You had great experiences, enjoyment, and yet again, you're a person that works in the IT industry, and if it wasn't for your first foray into it with the Electron,
exactly, who knows?
Who knows where you'd be? Right, so let's go into some games first. So there's a whole plethora of games, arcade games, that I think are superb on equally the BBC and the Electron that stood out. And I think, especially for the classic era, you know, the golden era, so your Pac-Mans, your Donkey Kongs, your Froggers, your Space Invaders, your Galagers, all that kind of thing, I think they haven't been beaten. That you had versions of them on the Spectrum, you had them on the Commodore and even on Amstrad, right? And there was far better games to get. And I just, these games, I suppose, also represented the very early period of these computers I've mentioned, right? And then people got to grips with programming on them and then created far better things.
Yeah.
But I do think the arcade ports on this system stand the test of time, and they're just as enjoyable to go back to and play today.
Definitely. I mean, it's weird as well because I didn't realise there were so many of them until we were looking at this. I didn't play many of them, I don't think. A few maybe. I was aware of a few, but the number's ridiculous. And I also love how the names are fantastic.
Oh yeah,
they've just changed one letter. So Galaga became Zalaga.
It's great. Before
funny.
Copyright infringement really took hold. These back then, these gaming companies were mere but flies on a horse's arse, just a mild inconvenience. They weren't taking revenue away from the real thing. And they're international corporations that they're probably not even aware that Acorn, somebody in their bedroom, has written, you know, a clone of one of their big arcade hits. You know, it's just, it was the way it was, and it was brilliant. And you're right, these titles are fantastic. I mean, you got any particulars you'd like to give an honourable mention to at all?
Killer Gorilla was one of them. Which
brilliant. I've played this, played this lots.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, Donkey Kong, very reminiscent of the time of the arcade machine itself and the game, and
but done in its own visual style, isn't it?
Unique Acorn style. Watching him run around and jump is something quite special, quite hilarious, to be honest.
I mean, you're a Donkey Kong purist now, so this would probably make you more cringe than anything else these days.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'm kind of looking at it going, oh, there's no chance I'm steering any of these barrels down anything, you know. And some of the level designs are slightly different and things like that. But I mean, to have this back in the day, I mean, superb.
It's a superb. It's indicative enough of the arcade version to give you the experience at home that, you know, it is memorable in that way. And I love the look of Donkey Kong in it. He's short and squat. What's the Pauline? I couldn't remember her name there for a second. The yellow hair for Pauline, the blockiness of her. It's just, there's a real charm to it. And I would always say,
but they've still managed to get, into good details, you know. So the fireballs to the barrels and everything else. I mean, the levels are a little bit different, but I guess, you know, a slightly different screen resolution as well. But they've done pretty remarkably well with it, to be honest. Yeah.
Any other ones?
Mr. E's hilarious instead of Mr. Do.
But how superb is that as an arcade portal? That's really good.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't. I mean, it's basically Mr. Do, isn't it? That's it. And it's so well done.
Yeah, it's got a professional slick to it, this one.
Yeah, really well done.
Even down to the patterns off the dirt, it looks the same as the arcade one. It's just, wow. They have...
Yeah.
It suits it, and it's probably one of the best arcade ports, I would say, for the Electron.
Yeah, it's really good. Another one was Zany Kong Jr., which again was a Donkey Kong Jr.
How is that? I've never played that one.
I don't have an actual taped copy of that. I had to use the emulator, and unfortunately, it was a little bit quirky. So sometimes it would work quite well, and other times it would crash quite a lot. So they've changed. The levels are. They're missing out the chain levels, which is that sort of intermediate stage you end up doing quite a lot of, a bit like in the original Donkey Kong, where you've always got the barrels kind of interspersed between levels. So, but I mean, what's there is good. But yeah, again, to be playing something like that back then, which was on the face of it was just like the arcade, it's pretty impressive.
I think a couple for me would be Skirmish, the joust one. I think that's pretty impressive. That it had the kind of inertia feel right, and I think the graphics and the colours look quite close to ridiculously close to the arcade version, to be honest.
Oh, they're amazing. I mean, they're very, let's use one of the Drisk's comments here, very vibrant at the bottom.
Have a drink, everyone.
It's almost, it's really strange though. It's a little bit like, it's reminiscent of the border at the bottom of Exile as well, which almost looks like it's a garbled mess of like corruption, but it's just a splattering of colours.
There's a number of games like that, is it?
Yeah.
I always wonder if that's because I need to check. Is the resolutions between the BBC and the Acorn Electron different, that, you know, is kind of lost in translation that way, that it just fills that void in with that nonsense? Answers in a postcard, please, if anyone knows.
Yeah.
I've seen that a number of times, and I think that is the case, but please, won't ever profess to be an all-out expert on it, so if anyone knows, please let us know.
Yeah.
What else? Probably, you know what? Monsters. What a brilliant Space Panic version that is.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Really good. That's another, you know, certainly that's the trouble. I get muddled with what I've played on
the BBC
at friends' houses and the BBC
else,
because between Mr. E and this, Monsters, I played them. The kids that were good at science were allowed to sit at the computers in the science labs. Bottles of chemicals all around you back in the 80s, right? Never gave a shit about them. I'm going to throw that in somebody on the bus and put acid in their face, or it was never like that. They put you in there with trust because you were a trustworthy student, and playing them at high school at lunchtimes, these games were just great. Loved them. But equally, yes, there was a number of these I played at my friends' houses back in the past. So there's a mix of memories of these. But what I would say, and we've collected a list, haven't we, Al, of the ones we're either aware of or recommend.
20 of them or something.
Like 20 of them. We'll put them all in the show notes because you know what? It ranges from Killer Gorilla. That's like Purple Burglar Alarm for us Scottish guys, isn't it? It doesn't naturally roll off the tongue.
No, not at all.
Right up to Arkanoid and Green Beret. Actually, Green Beret, have you ever played it? Because I'm curious to see what that's like. I didn't know.
I haven't. No, I've not played that one. I did try. I tried Commando the other day. That was.
I have played Commando. My mate had
wasn't
that.
bad. I mean, you can almost run the same speed as your bullets, but apart from that,
oh, if only we had that ability. Yeah,
but
it suffers from slowdown.
It's pretty decent, and once you get a few bullets and sprites on the screen, it really does tend to struggle a bit, which is a shame.
Struggles, but. No,
which is the opposite of. I don't know if you've tried Rocket Raid, which is essentially Scramble.
No,
but that seems to be Scramble on speed.
Wow,
like Scramble wasn't hard enough to begin with. It's like, it's like someone's hit times 3 or something.
Brilliant.
Oh, dear.
Okay, so that's the arcade list that we recommend. So none of these then are going to be on we have chosen games between us, so we're going to alternate between them. Ones that have got memories or just things we think we should mention. But we couldn't do this episode without mentioning the range of arcade ports that if that's all you want to spend your time playing on it, absolutely do that because you'll have great fun.
Oh, yeah.
Because
there's so many of them.
I'll go from the crap to the impressive, but you'll be laughing all the way. It's just something I would recommend doing with this if you want to delve into the ElectrEM itself. Now, going back a few years, I did do a BBC Micro episode with Vic from Tenpence Arcade. Now, the trouble with that is we covered the killer games that are must-haves, right? And yet again, those killer games are equally on the ElectrEM. That's the real issue here. Now, rather than going over old ground and speaking about the same games again, there's one I've picked up again because it really needs to be mentioned, I think. Mm-hmm. But apart from that, and Al's got one as well but you're kind of going to do it in honourable mentions, but it needs to be because they're important ones. So excuse us if you think we're missing. Why didn't you mention the must-have AAA games for the systems? Go back and listen to the BBC episode if you want to hear us discuss these because they have been covered. And what if RGDS? We don't want it sounds boring going over the same games time and time again. And I think the listeners don't want to hear that either. We like to challenge people to try new games as well. It's a celebration of the system. So that's kind of rationale behind it. So over to you, my good sir. For your first chosen game, what is it?
Thank you very much. Well, I've chosen one that I did have, as it happens, which was Thrust. So this was 1986, published by Superior Software, and I have rebought this as well via eBay twice because the first tape didn't work, but the second time it did. But it was only £3, so I can't really grumble too much. Mm-hmm. But it's a really, really good game. It reminded me of other games as well. So definitely influenced by Atari's 82 classic Gravitar. Of course, yeah. Which I'm sure you remember too. And it also made me think of later in life when I had an Atari ST. Sorry about that, folks. But I loved it.
See, hear the common trend here, everyone. I always take the mickey off Al here, right? Go into the bookies with Al and bet on the opposite because this guy backs the wrong pony.
Don't bet on the same horse as me, for sure. But yeah, okay. Anyway,
You know what? When we cover 16-bit underdogs, there is only one. Well, there's two systems actually, right? But and I owned them. No, anyway.
wow.
We
Anyway.
digress.
But it made me think of Oids, I think, as well. Very, very sort of similar. So
You
anyway,
missed out Hammer at the start of that.
definitely did not miss anything. Oh dear, it's descended already.
That's what I do.
That's true. There's even more coming, I'm sure. But yeah, so based on the Gravatar, you're a little spaceship, and you pick up the pod that's on each planet via your tractor beam and fly back into space. That's as simple as it gets. There are lots of hazards around. It starts off nice and slow and easy. There are turrets that shoot you. There's fuel to pick up, because obviously you will run low on fuel as you're thrusting and stopping yourself from crashing into the scenery. There's also a reactor as well. If you shoot the reactor, the pods that fire at you, the turrets that shoot their bullets at you, they will actually stop for a short period of time. However, if you get a bit too carried away and shoot the reactor too many times, you will actually cause the planet to blow up, which would not be a good idea. Unless, of course, you've already got the pod that you need to rescue from the planet. If you do that and shoot the reactor and the entire planet blows up, you will get a big bonus as well. So, I mean, that's in essence it. The gravity is fantastic. It's so tactile, and using this again on the keyboard itself was what a blast from the past this was.
Absolutely, mate. There is no bad version of Thrust on any 8-bit system, right? It was just a game that was made for computers because there's not fancy detail. It's very plain. It's wireframe and solid environment, if you want to call it that. So therefore, there's no reason in the hands of the right coder that this game can't exist on any of the systems. Yeah, likewise with many of the 8-bit computers, there's no hardware scrolling, handling the refresh rates on the screens or anything like that, right? So the trickery of the programmers at the time have done wonders. And I think equally this is a worthy game on the Electron. It's, you know, when you've got a good game like this, right, and it's inertia, I play this, and every time I'm playing it and I've picked up the orb to take it back to the surface, I'm gritting my teeth or I'm pursing my tongue between my lips like I'm trying to thread a needle. You know that expression?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? And equally pushing down on the keyboard so hard like that will make any difference to your inertia in the game, but you just seem to do so. And
as it starts swinging about you and it's dragging you towards the wall and the caverns, and they get complicated as well, right? I think I've been maybe 4 or 5 levels into this game, and reading about it, there are 6, but that's not where it ends either. It repeats those 6. But what I thought was hilarious with reading about it was after you finish the first 6 levels, they give you the same 6 again. Starts off easy and gets harder, right? But they reverse the gravity.
So
the gravity is going the wrong way, right?
Oh my God.
Then you do it again, normal gravity, I believe. The next 6 levels, again on repeat, but the walls are invisible. So it's the same layout, you only see the walls when you use your shield.
Oh my God.
Then it does that again, and it reverses the gravity and hides the walls. I'm like, this is mental. And apparently, if you got to that level, you got a special word that you could then send away and win a prize from the folks that made the game. I just thought, that is mad.
I'm impressed with the sharpness of the visuals on this, on the Electron, mate.
And the scrolling is really good.
The scrolling is really good. It just works. It's a very simple concept that if no one has played Thrust, Al and I will urge you to play it. It's a great game anyway. Some people get frustrated with sort of gravity, inertia type games. So imagine if you're not playing Gravatar, even Lunar Lander or something like that, right? You're fighting against the constant pull down of gravity. But against that, when you're thrusting, you've got the orb, and there's a whole pendulum influence by it. Geez, and you can't have collisions happening. That's the point. The walls get very narrow, very tight, and it's a frustrating game, but deeply rewarding when you master it, and it really, really works well. And I mean, it's a great first choice. You might not think games like this existed on the ElectrEM, but there's cracking titles out there, and this is definitely one of them. Any final words on that, Al, before we move on to the next game?
I just would definitely encourage folk to give that one a try. It's people probably have played it already.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but it's really good in the Acorn. Tricky, like you would expect, but yeah, good memories for sure.
Excellent. Right, on to my game. So I'm just going to go straight into this one that I covered with Vic in the past, right? And this is the only one, but I think it deserves to be mentioned again because I think it is absolutely stand out. Addictive as hell. Fiddly until you get a hang of the controls. If you dive in deep without instructions, you go, what the hell is going on here? But what I'm on about is Imogen. Okay, so you play a wizard who can transform between a monkey and a cat. So it's a kind of environmental game, which is slightly icon driven to either transform between these other creatures or interact with one of the objects you collect. And the idea is to find the gem on each level that then allows you to teleport into the next. Firstly, the visuals in this, I suppose they can be, for those familiar with the ZX Spectrum, I think you could possibly say it's those kind of visuals. Would you agree with that, Al?
Yeah, very, very simple, but really cute. And actually, yeah, the expressions and animations are amazing.
Yeah. So it's monochromatic, right? It changes colours. It starts blue, can go yellow. So, blue backgrounds, and it's only using black then to show anything else. It almost looks hand-drawn style, doesn't it? The pixel art in this. That's what it really looks like. So you start in the level and there's ropes and balloons and you have to figure out how to get to the gem to teleport. And you'll die a lot just trying to figure it out. You go, okay,
I did.
You can only jump in certain directions, or you think this is impossible. You're scratching your head and going, how am I going to get through this? And then it dawns on you, right, okay, I need to be this particular creature at this moment because the cat can leap, the monkey can climb, and only the human can use the objects that because monkeys can't use laser guns, folks, for goodness sake, or whatever you get. It's not laser guns, but you know what I mean. You get whips, and so it's a good example. Level 2, there's a whip, right? Don't get too excited, people, right? Just keep that thing to yourselves. So there's like a greyhound-like dog guarding an area. So you get up, change to the wizard, whip him back the way, whip, back off until he gets past the rope, and then you can change them back to the monkey. So it's all about what character should I be at a particular point in the game, or how should I interact with a particular object. And it's a puzzle platform is the best way to describe it. But it's quite sedate, it's slow paced, but the trouble is you don't get that many transformation chances. There's only 140, is there, Al?
I think it's 150 you start with.
150,
yeah,
apologies.
you got to be careful, yeah.
Yeah, got to be careful. So for every time you transform into each creature, it uses a point up, right? So don't needlessly use them up and cycle through all three again. Seriously think about the screen you're on. There's no time limit, so take your time. Think about how you're going to do it. It's superb. Imogen isn't just pretty, folks, right? because aesthetically it's one of the best looking games on the Acorn Electron, I think so. But it depends what mode, because the Electron does have different modes of colour palettes and that, so this is obviously using the more high resolution mode, therefore limiting the number of colours used, hence the more spectrum like monochromatic look. But that doesn't detract from the graphics are beautiful, but it's a very engaging puzzle game that honestly I think you'll get yourself completely lost on if you play.
Yeah, totally agree. I thought the graphics were the first thing that actually struck me. Brilliant animations, really brings the characters to life. And yeah, I was definitely guilty at the beginning of just changing far too often and watching my counter tick down.
What's that counter doing?
What's happening here? Oh no! Oh! I see. Right. Okay. But yeah, some devious little puzzles. Nothing overly taxing, but it's just doing the right thing at the right time with the right object, and that's kind of what it's all about. So yeah, really good fun game.
Yeah, I suppose the trouble is with it being on cassette, each level loaded independently, so it was a multi-load game, so I can imagine that being quite frustrating, you know. But it's not a fast action paced game, so there's no sort of continuity disrupted by that. I suppose it's like, yes, thank goodness I've solved that level. Load in the next, take a few moments for it to load, a bit of breathing, you know, read something again, waiting to loading up, and do your homework for goodness sake between loading the games, and you're fine. But I absolutely urge anyone to play this on the Electron or the BBC, whatever you want to play it on. It is completely fantastic. It's up there, to be honest, it's up there with one of my most favourite old school games, to be honest, of all time. That's how much I think of this.
That's some shout out. You covered this with Vic, right? So was there many differences between BBC and the Electron version that you can remember?
The level designs and the running order's different.
Okay.
It's mainly running order. It's like, that's weird because you think there'd be
you think it would almost be the same levels, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
level 1, level 2,
because it has
level 3,
a difficulty curve.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, well, okay, I can't remember exactly what level 1 is on the BBC. You know, level 1 on the Electron is, I think it's about level 3 on the bloody BBC. It's like, well, thanks for dropping me on level 3, why don't you, you know? But, no, I think you've just got to take the levels. They do get harder, obviously they do.
Yeah.
But you've just got to take each level as they come and just slowly think about it. And there's so much going on with it. I mean, there's people that are action arcadey people that might not like this because it is a more sedate game, but to me this is what gaming for me is all about. It's unique, it dances to the beat of its own drum, you know what I mean, it's its own thing, so good for it. Brilliant.
I mean, certainly I hadn't seen anything like this before.
Exactly.
Quite a novel, just a novel game where you've not really got life, so you can keep on retrying stuff, but ultimately you've really got to watch that counter quite closely. I think
I forgot to mention it didn't come out until 1988, so that's bloodily on. So in terms of that, most people that probably had an Electron missed out on this.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Right, on to you again. So what are you choosing next?
I am going to choose a little fighter. So Way of the Exploding Fist, which I'm sure will be familiar with many people on different platforms.
Oh, yeah.
So this was a 1985 publisher, Melbourne House. And I didn't have this back in the day, but I do remember playing this on different platforms and going back to this on the Acorn. I was actually pretty amazed that the graphics were really good. The animations were fluid, realistic. I mean, there's a lot of instructions, and I did actually buy this one off of eBay, and the instructions, I've realised how old I must be because I need to almost use a microscope to read them. They are printed so bloody small. So small. So that was great. I don't know how anyone read those back in the day. Aim of the game's pretty clear, winning 2 full points to win a round. You start as a novice, and you work your way all the way up to a 10th Dan. Basically, that's it. So lots of moves, lots of different keys to keep an eye on as well. I think there's 9 different keys in this game, which was a bit sore on the old noggin to remember all those. The one thing that I would say was that the sound was absolutely horrendous. It seems that the Acorn only has one level of sound, which is bloody loud, and it drowned out any sound effects, because generally actually the sound effects for fighting were pretty good. Good crunching sound when you connect with your opponent or punched them, whatever. So that was good. But yeah, the music itself, the first thing I did was turn that off. So for anybody playing this, it is button 4. Turn off the music, because it's god awful.
Yes, I can attest to that. You know.
What about yourself? What are your memories of this one?
I mean, I was a Spectrum boy when I owned this, so this is me coming into this one now. And I'll tell you, it runs faster than the Spectrum version. It's more impressive. It's got colour, so I mean, your character's blue, your opponent's black. You know, the mountains and that are all coloured in the background. And it's not got lots of colour, but enough to give it a bit of variety to it. I mean, I was well impressed. I think the hitboxes are quite good in the game.
Yeah.
It's very satisfying. The 2 moves. One, the roundhouse kick. That is the equivalent of beheading on Barbarian, isn't it? It's just,
very
when you
satisfying.
Get it, it's very satisfying. And the crouch down and punching the ghoulies is another good one. It's like that crunching sound. Boom, you go, oh!
Yeah. Very reminiscent of like International Karate Plus or something like that, you know, which Archer McLean's game. But yeah, very, very much the same.
But I'm still off the argument, and I know you're a big Street Fighter fan, right? But after this in IK Plus, I had no more interest in fighting games. After, you know, I love my scroll and beat 'em ups. That aside, the PvP type martial arts games, they do completely nothing for me, because yes, the modern games are far more graphically better. There's 1,000 million moves, but you know what? In terms of what it's delivering, this is the argument I always make about it. People go, I feel like crap, right? No, I get no more satisfaction from those games beyond these. I think it peaked. Fighting games peaked with Way of the Exploding Fist and IK Plus, and the genre didn't give me nothing after it. So that's how important, in some ways, this game is, if you know what I mean, right? It's great, and I've now seen a better version than the Spectrum. I mean, there's other versions, the Commodore version's really, really incredible, don't get me wrong. But this is quite a showcase fighting game for the Electron, and I can see why you chose this here, because it shows off under the hands of the right coders that you don't get that kind of slowdown that it's normally marred with, and it's impressive.
Yeah. Nice, yeah. Big chunky graphics, bit of colour, bit of splash of colour in there, and yeah, good fun.
Okay, Al, for my next game is going to go back to 1985 and released by Icon Software. And it's the one and only Bug Eyes. We had a kid in our year who had obviously hyperthyroidism in the class, and that was his name. Bug Eyes, Bug Eyes. We were cruel at school, weren't we? His eyes did stick out like he was constantly having a shite, but I mean, it was like, poor guy. I hope he's got under control with medications these days, but anyway, that's a side thought. So anyway.
He'll be glad when he's listening to this.
I've mentioned
he remembered me. He remembered me.
I've mentioned many of the characters from my school days, so.
Oh, I don't think I would. Anyway.
So anyway, what is Bug Eyes? Well, firstly, even though Al, like me, we've downloaded the Tosec collection of Bug Eyes, okay? We seem to have a hacked version of it. I can't find the original one. And there's been a slight graphical change, shall we say. And instead of the little spaceman in his space helmet, we have a space lady with stiletto heels, red hair, and quite, I suppose, Lara Croft boobs and a bikini in space, because that's what you do in space. Aside from that, the level design's the same, but it's bizarre. I didn't even know, how did this get on? Tosecs are meant to be the definitive collections, but yeah, not everything's guaranteed, not everything's proofed, but it didn't detract from the fact that Bug Eyes is still Bug Eyes. And what is it? It's a kind of either left to right. It's not a platformer because you can't jump, right? So you've just got to survive by not getting killed by moving up and down creatures or crushers. Like, if anybody knows the Monty Mole series, those type of crushers, there's like lots of them moving about. Now, this game doesn't have very many levels, but the reason being is it likes to make very frustrating, very difficult levels. You think it's easy to play, but it's not. And there's nothing to collect. It's just a case of starting at your start point and getting out the exit at the end. That's all it is. But oh my God, it can be hard. But you know what? I love it. It's just, I've died so many times. You'll see on the video, if you're watching the video version of this, it's my playthrough, and I'm crap at it. I used to be a lot better. My reflexes done, or I think what it is, it's not about the reflexes. It's about my patience and tolerance for waiting, and for all the factors of the level to be in the correct place at the one time, all the creatures in the right position, and then go for it. I'll go now. Oh, I've just died, and it pushes you back to the start of the level. It's like, here we go again. What do you think of this game, mate?
Yeah, it was. I mean, apart from the main characters seemingly have changed, but apart from that, it was. Have one of those one more try type things about it. That's
one more try, 10 more tries.
Yeah, and again and again and again. Very easy to die. Very easy to get through the first level, maybe 2 levels. Then after that, it gets really tricky.
False sense of security. That.
Oh, So I'd say. The bouncing heads or the eyes, the bug eyes, they actually remind me a little bit of Elmo, I think.
Elbow or Elmo? Do you call it elbow? Elbow. You got eyeballs in the bottom of your arm, have you?
I can't see. I'm too busy trying to lick my elbow. That's what it was.
Yeah, it's very Elmo-like, isn't he?
Yeah, it's just like, it was a bit weird. Bouncing heads of Elmo all over the screen, basically, with spikes and platforms to run across. And it was just, like you say, all about the timing, trying to get past all these things. Addictive, but also very frustrating.
Yeah. I think it's very much a game of its time. In fact, it's maybe a year, or even in 85, it's maybe a year or two a little late. But what I really like about it is the strong colours and visuals used in it. It's very Acorn-like, isn't it? If I showed you a screenshot and I would ask you, you'd maybe say BBC, but you know what I mean?
I think so. I think you'd be of that time, wouldn't you? But it's a reduced colour palette in terms of not loads of different colours, but they are bright, and it is shifting quite a few different sprites around as well. So I think there's like six bouncing Elmo heads on that first level, I think, along with your own main character. So it's actually, and then there's like, I think 3 or 4 different platforms on there too. Well, 4 platforms which are in pairs, whatever. So
yeah,
it is shifting a few things around, which was quite impressive.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of latency in the game, and therefore it makes it more harder to, time your movement between any moving object that will kill you.
And the score was interesting as well. I think the score actually goes up almost as you get through the level. As you drop from like the upper part of the level to the bottom, your score actually starts to increase, and you've obviously got that bonus for getting off the screen as well, which ticks down.
I'm not sure if this hack makes the main character more pixels wider than the original. I'll need to just go and play the BBC version, to be honest, because it's easy. Anyone wants to play BBC versions, you don't even need to download an emulator, by the way. They all run in the browser on the BBC Micro website. That they're all being optimised to run on that. And it's a great way to play any BBC resource. So if you just want a quick fix and access to the game rather than playing the system, and I hate that because we're on about the ElectrEM, but there's parallels. That's the point, right? It's, you know, I just wanted people to play these games, play them whatever bloody way you want to try them, you know, and see what you think. But I think I'll need to do that. Is fire up just the BBC version and compare the pixel width, because there's points you just make it between, because of the, you know, your backpack, right? There's some of the two moving Elmos and that you just make it no more, but
Yeah.
it's quite jerky movement if you just tap the direction, isn't it? And it's like, it's quite precise, and it can be frustrating. But if you like games of that nature, then I think it's for you. And I got a lot of enjoyment out of it. I think it's a classic game, and it's of its time. And yeah, it's definitely one worth mentioning for the system.
Yeah, it's good.
Right, what about yourself? What one next?
Well, next I have chosen Pengi from 1985. It's a direct clone. Publisher was Visions, I believe. I'm not sure if I had Pengi or there's another one which is called Percy Penguin. It's in a sense the same game, and both are a clone of Sega's arcade game Pengo. So you have a map. There are little blobs trying to chase you and hunt you down and kill you. You've got 3 diamond blocks in the middle there, and you basically have to line those up. So you can break the ice blocks, and you can throw an ice block at one of the enemies. It slides, vertically or horizontally along that line, or you can melt one of them. Line up those 3 diamond blocks, and you win the level. If you manage to line them up within the middle of the map, you get a really big bonus, I think 10,000 points. If they're up against the side of the map, you get half the bonus, so 5,000. Something I never knew was that you could actually kick the side of the map, right around the edge. It's an electric fence. I'd never realised that. So if you kick that and one of the little blob things is chasing you and they're near the wall, they will actually get electrocuted.
Oh, right. I never knew
they actually
this.
get zapped, and they'll freeze
this
for a
in
little
the arcade
minute.
version as well?
I honestly can't remember if that did or not. So
What happens
I don't know
if you take
this is
a whiz against the electric fence? As penguins
I'm
do. I'm asking for a
there's
friend.
I'm not sure there's a key for that on the Acorn.
P is for Percy, P is for...
Pengi.
You know what, mate?
But,
I think it's a superb version.
Yeah, the graphics were great. It moved. It was fast. I mean, they hunt you down as well. So do not dilly dally. You need to be moving all the time, or those things are going to come and get you.
I think this is absolutely banging. This is what I'm on about, where I was jealous of this computer and it handling these arcade ports. I just think it's because the visuals it can handle and the mode it runs these in aesthetically looks like the arcade games of that period, right? So you convince your young mind that it's on the same architecture. It's not, but you know what I mean. And that's you get a far more arcade vibe from these versions, I think, than any other microsystem of their time. You might get a very good version of this on the Commodore, you might get a very good version of this on the Spectrum, but it does not look like the arcade. It maybe plays like the arcade, but it definitely doesn't look like it. And this is up there. This is completely up there. That gets a thumbs up from me, because I love this game in general as an arcade game. I think it's great. It's one of my favourite. If you go back to the old, the golden era period of these ones, then I'm very pleased with this, and it gives you that arcade experience enough that I think it steals money from the arcades, these thieves, because it gives you enough of the arcade experience not to really want the hunger for playing it. There,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
obviously, if you're a
Yeah.
high score junkie, that's a different kettle of fish, right? But if you just want the experience, you've got it right here on this
Yeah.
version. Brilliant.
Yeah,
Good
it's
choice.
really good.
Yeah. Any other thing else you want to say on it?
Just that the little, I think they're called snow bees. I was just double checking what the little monsters are called, snow bees. The only thing that's annoying about them is that once you do squish one of them, they come out of the diamond block, and of course the diamond blocks are what you're trying to line up. So you've got to be really careful that the one you're trying to go and move doesn't have one of these snow bees coming right back out of it again. So it can be a bit of a frustrating game, but it's definitely good sounds, really nice graphics, and it's hectic and frenetic. Or frenetic, even.
Bit of both.
Bit of both.
Okay, mate, I'm going to punish you a game. And the only reason I'm bringing this up, and it's not the greatest game, right? But the reason I'm bringing this up is, one, I've played it at my mate's house. So I had memories and I thought it was great back in its time because it visually looked different. It played like nothing else. And I was like, yeah, damn right, it played like nothing else, mate. Right. This is Last of the Free. Now, this was released by Audiogenic and as late as 1987. And you'd think, well, maybe they perhaps should have been doing a bit better. But the game is a charm for me simply because I was playing it at my friend's house. So it's kind of arcade adventure. And you control this blob that actually looks like blob as in the acronym from Starquake. And I thought, oh yes, it's Starquake. But, no,
Starquake and Electron.
yeah,
Hooray.
it's not. So you play this droid, okay, and there's a whole thing where all it's usual, the robots have all taken control apart from where his malfunction is slightly, the blob hasn't, and the only hope for humanity is for this little protagonist to teleport so he can get to Earth and tell his human controllers all the crap that's going on. Basically, the robots have taken control on the other planets and other systems. That's all it is. So it's a kind of puzzle platformer with objects to use. You know, you get keys to open doors, and there's other objects to drop near obstacles to clear the way. That's as simple as that. It's the best way to describe it. And I was visually impressed with this back in the day. It just looked nothing. It was very blue with some red. It's very strong, mixing blue and reds together. But going back today, it's a very different thing altogether. The engine is god awful. The collision detection, the platform jumping, and all the rest is
Awful.
Is awful. Yeah, I mean,
I actually thought when you put this on the list, oh man, I don't know who by. I thought when you put this list, I thought he's having a joke. This has got to be the worst game I can remember playing.
And I still insisted keeping it on.
I know. And to be fair to it, the graphics are actually pretty decent. You know, nice sprites and a lot of stuff going on. But it's just so fast and so inaccurate, and the little bugger enemies, honestly, they are relentless. It's not a case if you just touch it and it starts draining your energy a little bit. It kind of almost sticks to you, and as you try to move, it kind of just follows you. Yeah. You're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then before you know it, you're dead.
You know what? In my mind's eye, none of this happened, right? Because I've never...
None of them happened back in 1980.
It didn't, right? This is another hack, by the way. Someone's going back and wanting to find the bloody game. And
somebody's gone back in time and made it worse.
No, I stuck with it because it was initial on the list, but therefore we were too committed, and you know what? Let's have a laugh about a game, right?
Oh, for sure.
Right, yeah. And maybe other listeners that had an Acorn owned this game. But, oh, my
I mean, good luck
goodness.
to... I'd love to know if anyone actually got anywhere in it.
I mean, you're right. The way the collision detection works is the enemies react to you as well. Okay, so the minute you touch them, I think they're meant to change direction, but what happens is it forgets to give maybe a millisecond of grace after it's touched you to move in opposite direction. So it tries to, but it then detects it's still touching you and tries to move the other direction. So your energy depletion just goes and moves down. It's like, oh, for goodness sake. And the collision detection, the best of times, it isn't that great anyway. If they perfected that, it made the jump, because you've got platforms all over the place, right? That there's ones that don't even need to exist. There could be one platform above another, and the way you jump, you just end up jumping the one above, and there was no use of the one below. So the kind of quality assurance of this is god awful. I mean, basically, please play this and have a laugh with us. That's what we're saying here. My memory has been... Memory's a funny thing, mate. You know, I mean, I enjoyed this because I didn't own this. There was no version of this on the Spectrum, or even... You know, I could have played it at a mate's house on the Commodore or another mate's house on the CBC. I hadn't seen this before, so I was excited, and therefore I was enjoying it. And I was like, yeah, it's landed free. I forgot all about this was a thing. Fire up now. Oh, my God. What a mess. Please play it anyway, because I want everyone to see how not to do a game. And it's probably not just one of the worst games written on... ElectrEM. It's one of the worst games written ever. This is how bad it is, isn't it?
I think my only comment when we were chatting about this was, "Erg, what a game! Too hard. Enemies follow you. You die a lot. The end." That was my summary of this game.
I did get reasonably far, I think. Well, I've got a playthrough,
through this playthrough. Well, I'll enjoy watching that later. Then that'll be fun. I think I got like three. I think I got 3 screens. I think that was it.
Well, I got further than 3 screens. So he may be the king of the arcades, but I'm the king of the shit collision detection games.
Excellent.
Okay, so let's move on. Shall we move on?
Let's move. Oh, please do.
Right, okay, it's back to your choice, mate.
Oh, here we go. Yes, this is a blast from the past. I had this game. So Yie Are Kung Fu. So again, 1986 this was, and publisher was Imogen. And I bought this again from eBay. I think it was £4.50. I still remember that iconic artwork. I think it looked like the chap on the front was Bruce Lee kicking you in the face and throwing his nunchucks at you. So still remember that. His nunchucks. I said nunchucks. So you play Oolong as the hero, and you're trying to become a grandmaster. He's this long.
I'm glad you pronounced Yie Are Kung Fu.
So am I now.
I'm going to bring Drisky in here because he...
what does he call it?
I don't know. I can't even... You know, when it's like there's a foreign language and they have an enunciation that's completely different as alien to you. Like up in Scotland, we go loch, and most people go out and make that sound because they didn't learn it at childhood. Drisky has this weird sound for Yie Kung Fu or something. It's like, it's like...
It sounds like he's in the game.
It's what's that group? The KLF. It sounds like or something like that. That's what he's in. He done the vocal section for that.
Oh my God.
Anyway, sorry.
I do remember playing this with my brother, and we'd be taking turnabouts, trying to fight over the keyboard, and generally speaking, he would be putting me off and I'd be putting him off. So dead arm, dead leg.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, mate.
And he's going nuts at me as he's doing a bonus stage and kicking cups and other bits of crockery and what looked like flying yellow oranges, which is, yellow oranges. That's what they look like. They didn't look like lemons anyway. So, but you're trying to become the Grandmaster, and you have a number of opponents to fight against. I remember playing this in the arcade more recently. I had never seen this in the arcade before, so.
Oh right, okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, this one had missed me by on that side, but I couldn't never get that far. I think maybe I got 4 or 5 into this through the 10 or so I think you need to beat. Yeah, so it was fluid. It was good fun, jumping around like an absolute lunatic within the game, and like you said in one of the other ones, where you're pressing the keys that hard to try and make sure you've kicked him properly. You know, probably breaking the keyboard more than anything.
Probably, yeah.
But, yeah, it's a great game. What about yourself for this?
I know it from my own local arcades, and I had to buy it on the Spectrum back in the day. I love the Spectrum port. Big style. In fact, when I joined the Retro Asylum guys last year, Yie Are Kung Fu was part of the 8-Bit Wars, Spectrum versus Commodore versus Amstrad. I was disappointed that Amstrad won that one, but that's nothing to do with that. I wasn't aware that this came out on any other system.
Oh, okay.
So it's great. It's always great to see it. I mean, yeah, the overuse of yellow makes everyone. Well, it's a bit, you know,
on PC
in this day and standard. But I mean,
yeah.
It plays okay, mate. I mean, I love. Yeah, I keep saying I miss this period. If you, let's go back to. I've said this in so many episodes, right? We had it in the 8-bit period, even had it in the 16-bit period. But once the 32-bit period came out, there was not much of muchness between different systems, versions of the same games. You know, this, I love seeing what every version looks like. That's why I loved the Arcade Perfect podcast when it was out. And I was lucky enough to join those guys in a few episodes that did compare all the arcade ports with every home version to see what home version was the best. But I wasn't caring about what game was champion. To me, it was the experience of, oh, I didn't know that it was out in this system, it was out in that system, and you were playing them. And it was this computer's interpretation of it. And they were all similar-ish, but they handled differently, they looked different, and it was great. It was an exciting time. So to see this version, because I've never seen it, it's brilliant. And the hit collision's okay. It's not the greatest, but you can imagine if you've not seen the arcade, and this is the only time you've ever played it, mate, but with your brother, this would be fantastic, because it's great to see. The overlapping of the colours. I never knew that the Electron had colour clash like the Spectrum does when the characters walk over each other.
Yeah, they've done a good job of that, haven't they?
Yeah. I think it was intentional though. Yeah, let's do a bit of Spectrum stuff here. So, but no, it's. I mean, if this is the only computer I had and this was the only version I had of it, I wouldn't complain. Let's be honest about it. It's fine. It's fine.
It's even got. I was watching the video again of it, and it's even got a little bit of animation in the background, the waterfall moving. You know, it's doing its best. A few random pixels falling there, but yes.
Well, it does, but that's all it needed.
Yeah,
I wouldn't slag that. I love that rather than static, because as far as I recall, I didn't see that in the Spectrum version and that. You know, so something unique to this one. So yeah. The change to the, I always call it that colour, when you go to the temple, it goes to Dragon 32 green in the background. That's hellish on the eyes, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if anyone has ever want to go through all the Chucky Egg games, please try the Dragon 32 version of that. And we're going to cover the Dragon 32 in future, 8-bit Underdog episodes anyway, but yeah, it's a strange colour to choose as a predominant background in a game. It causes eyeball melting, to say the least. So, yeah. Anything else on this one?
No, that was all for Yie Are Kung Fu.
Yie Are Kung Fu. I don't know how Drisky says it. Drisky, I'm going to phone him now. Let's phone him. Right. Where's the phone? I'm not kidding. Where's my bloody phone? Right. 2 seconds, right. Live on a podcast, we're phoning Paul Driscoll, everyone. I was laughing here, right.
It's going to be a rant. You're like,
he's probably
randomly asking me.
Hi, Kingy,
you alright?
Are you good? You hear me now this time, yeah?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Right, you're live at my speaker on the podcast, by the way. Okay, as I'm recording with Almac. And we've just got a quick question to ask you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Please pronounce how you say Yie Are Kung Fu.
Yie Are Kung Fu.
Aye, he misses out the Y, it's a silent Y. Right, we're going to settle, that's okay. Right, thanks for that, Paul. You take care and we'll see you soon, right? Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm a shit. Sorry, Paul. Anyway, let's move on to the next.
What's the next one? Quick.
I'm having to scroll up my bloody list now. Sorry, it's up and down. I'm up and down like a Jack Rucker's willy. So right. Right, mate. On to the next game. And it's my choice again. So we're going to 1985. And publisher Martech, who did like Jeff Capes' Strongman. Rest in peace, by the way, Jeff Capes. He died this year, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah,
Sadly.
yeah. The man that could tear telephone books made us feel inferior. So anyway, another sporting legend. The UK's equivalent of Evel Knievel. And that's Eddie Kidd. You know, he was renowned for leaping over buses and motorbikes and all the rest. Unfortunately, he had a bad accident in the 90s and he was paralysed from then on. So sad to see. But, you know, that's the risk of the business he was in, you know, entertainment of these kind of things, of jumping like 15 metres. And right, the bit that pisses me off is buses are always cancelled when you need them. And I know where they are. There's stuntmen jumping over the frickin' things. Stop
That's why
doing
there's no
that and
buses.
get the buses back in the bloody circuit, right?
But what's the reason now, though? Because no one's jumping over the buses anymore, are they?
Maybe there is. Maybe there is. You never know. You never know.
No, maybe.
Right, so, yeah, you play Eddie Kidd and it is a stuntman, motorbike and BMX game. So for some reason, it begins as a tutorial level and you need to get your distance away from the ramp. The instructions kind of don't tell you these things. Don't just face right and go hurtling towards the ramp because you won't make it. You have to go left. It's kind of pointless. It's like why not just start me further away? But in the land of video games back in the 80s, no, you have to make your distance first. You judge it because if you go too far, go too fast, and you're going to overshoot the jump as well. So I suppose you've got that kind of balance. But it starts off in the BMX and it's not too difficult. You get your distance, you pick up the speed, and he starts hurling towards the ramp and jumps over barrels. And you've just got to, once you're in the air, move his angle that he lands perfectly on the other side on the ramp, or otherwise you'll get an injury and start the game all over again. Then you extend over to the motorbike. And it's the same thing, but it's buses this time. And the frustrating thing about this game is, I loved it because I actually first saw this on the Electron and enjoyed it so much that I wanted to get it for the Spectrum, which I did. But on this version, I can't remember if the Spectrum version is the same. It maybe is. It's been years since I played it. But you have to go through the gears as well. So there's so many buttons to press. It gets a bit confusing. And you only can get up to so much speed, then whack on the next gear. But you have to watch gear management because if you accelerate too hard, the motorbike wheelies and you fall off and you crack your skull on the ground and it's game over. You're sent back to the bloody BMX again. So it takes a little while to get used to the mechanics of the game. But once you're there, the fun is when you're in the air, just to keep him level, that he doesn't tumble and land perfectly on the other side. You got any memories of this yourself, Al?
No, I don't remember this one at all. And it was I would say it's fairly fun. It wasn't amazing. Like you say, it was just a little bit clunky at the beginning. I was like, which way do I go? And it was kind of a bit counterintuitive. It goes from left to right, but you've got to start pedaling your bicycle left, first of all, to give yourself enough distance from the ramps. I think it was fairly decent in terms of, the scrolling that's there, the speed bar that's going in there. And it was fairly tactile when you're jumping over the barrels. There was that sort of feeling of, he's falling a little bit back and the front wheel's popping up too much. I better adjust for this. So
yeah,
fairly tactile and adjusting whilst you're going over the barrels and making sure you landed with both wheels flat. Yeah, I found the transition then to the motorbike quite difficult to begin with because, like you say, more buttons involved. You've got to go up the gears. If you put too much throttle on, he pops a wheelie and you fall off. Or if you try to put the nose of the bike down by pressing one of the other buttons, you end up doing a somersault and smash
That's
into
right,
the ground.
that's right.
So, yeah, it was fiddly, but I think once you got through that, yeah, the distances just got, you jumped over more things, more barrels, more buses, whatever. And yes, I would say I wouldn't have probably played this for a long time back in the day, but for a little while, it was good fun.
You know what I liked about it? It's like many of these things where you actually like the disasters and the accidents and the mishaps. that's the fun part, because you're playing with a friend. You just have a laugh with each other how disastrous it went. You know what I mean? And that's what the game's about. So it was never about getting the perfect jump, because I was always rubbish in whatever version. Because I've played it on the Electron, got it on my Spectrum, and my mate had it on the Commodore, and I've always just had a chuckle with it. But let's be frankly honest about this BMX level. Graphically, it looks like a 70s porn star with an afro haircut and a beard, not a helmet. He's naked and he's having sex with the frickin' bike when he's cycling along, doesn't it? He's just thrusting backwards forwards, faster. He's like that. It's ridiculous graphics. Right? They knew what they were doing when they done the sprites on this. It's insane. Right? It doesn't do that anymore, but it's just complete innuendo on the BMX
Terrible.
version. It's terrible.
I think they were trying to make him look like he was pedaling, but I know exactly what you mean.
It
looks like he's doing
I've
thrusting
never
constantly.
pedalled like that. You're a cyclist more than me. Have you pedalled like that in your life?
No, that's true. I've not.
Exactly, right? We've all done the whole waggle side to side thing to get the speed up, yeah? The old classic BMX thing, because there's no gears. Side. But not that. This man is making love with his BMX
to the chopper.
So yeah, for that alone, fire up and have a chuckle at the poor graphics of it. But it's frustrating to get a hang of the controls. But urge anyone, just persevere, because I don't think there's any good version of it. I don't. Martech were very good at that kind of thing, where we know I've not got a lot of game here, so we'll make it very difficult for the player to progress further. And there's still something about it that goes, right, I didn't quite get that, so I'm going to have another go. But I don't like being punished by being sent back to the trainer level of the BMX. I'd rather just go back to the start of the motorbike.
It'd been better if you'd gone through the BMX levels to get the hang of it, and then after that you just started off straight on the motorbike ones, because that was they're very, very easy. So to do them again is just a bit of a waste of time.
Yeah, absolutely. So cool. Right, next game, your choice.
All right. Well, my next one was Starship Command.
Yes.
Which was a great game. Yeah. So 1984, Acorn Soft and Peter Irvin that did this. So again, not one I actually played back in the day.
Oh, you didn't? Right. Okay.
No, this I missed, unfortunately. I don't know how, but I did. Yeah. But it's really nice game, I think. So you're in a star field, you're in space. It's a little bit reminiscent of Asteroids to an extent, but it's got a lot going on the right-hand side. You've got your energy bars, you've got kind of like your shields on and off, you've got a kind of funky radar map, almost in the style of Elite, but not quite. So you sort of, pulling forward and back and rotating left and right, and your starship stays central. It was a little bit reminiscent of the Starship Enterprise, I think. That's kind of what it reminded me of.
Absolutely that, yes.
Yeah. So, and I did a little bit of research on the game. So it looks like Peter was a friend, or certainly at university, with Ian Bell and David Braben for Elite. So I think all of them were doing these type of things and trying to get the most out of the BBC and Acorn. So, it's really, really fast game, lots of sprites coming around the place, and basically you've got to survive, right? You've got 4 energy banks, and you've got to shoot all the onslaught of all the enemies coming on, but there's a lot of bullets to be missing, and you can fire pretty rapidly. It was good fun. What about you?
Yeah, I know this game. Played it quite a bit at my mate's house, played it on the BBC as well. It's a renowned game, mate. But it's a good point that I never mentioned earlier on, right? And this is clearly representative of this, right? That why are the key controls for BBC and Electron games utter wank? right? That's the only way I can put it. They're utter wank. I mean, you need fingers of a contortionist over the keyboard. There's no QA OPM nonsense. No. It's always
let's be
ZX
fair,
and symbol. Go on.
It kind of starts off okay. Z and X, I don't mind. Left and right, that's okay. But then it just goes nuts. Yeah. N for fire, M for brake, comma for brake, F, G, B, V, C, 2, Q, 3, W, copy and delete. I'm like...
Pew, pew, Barney McGrew, Tuffet, Dibble, Grub.
Yeah, I don't have enough fingers for that, do I?
But the trouble is, our younger selves would have. There's something about being older and taking all this in again and relearning how to play these games. I mean, oh my God, surely you're terrible at it now, right? You just die.
There's 16 different buttons, so...
That's why the rubber keyboard Spectrum was invented for those games, and the overlays fitted perfectly over it. You can't get that on inverted commas. You can't see me doing it proper keyboard, but you've got that asteroids aesthetic to the game. It's gorgeous. I love wireframe monochromatic aesthetics. It pleases me. I don't need the imagination takes over on it. The whole rotation of it, because you're right, you remain centrally in the game, gives you motion sickness. And the older I get, the more motion sickness I actually get in these freaking games. It's just like, what is it with getting old? You can't remember the keys. You throw up when you play a game. It's like, oh my God. But no, I'm joking aside. I think it really still stands out as a very complex take on an arcade concept and give it some, I suppose, role-playing elements to it. Some elite 2D top-down, you shoot them up, radars, and it works really well. And I don't think, because of the lo-fi look of it, it hasn't dated at all. And I think that's impressive. It really works.
Yeah, I mean, the visuals were great, right? It's just there was so much that's going on the screen. Really, I was quite impressed by that, having not seen it back in the day. And you can see elements of this that went into his next game, because I think he went on, from what I was reading as well, he went on to develop Exile, which was a very popular game and one that
I adore Exile. Now, Exile's not included because we covered in the BBC episode, but Exile is an incredible, frustrating game. But have you played that on the Electron?
Yeah. I think it was the BBC. I think I played that one as well. Yeah.
It's so good. I'm not going to get into any detail. Just bloody play it, fire it up, right? And these games that are massively scrolling. How would you describe it in a very quick nutshell, mate?
Almost like Metroidvania in a sense. It's like a huge, great big map.
Oh, it's just a huge map, isn't it?
Huge map, yeah.
So busy.
Exploration.
Yeah.
And too much going on it.
Too much going on, yeah.
Too much going on.
Right, on to my next game, mate, and that's Astroplumber. That came out in 1986 by Blue Ribbon. No, that's not the chocolate biscuit, that's Blue Ribbon.
That's exactly what I thought it was.
Yeah, can't get enough of those
nice.
blue ribbons. Right, Astroplumber is a lovely... So I suppose it looks a bit like Space Panic.
Yeah.
Right? It's a gorgeous looking game that you play a space... You play a space plumber, an astro plumber, where it's a ladders and levels game, where there's a lattice of, pipes and for gas mining that you're doing in the game, that you've got to plug the leaks in that are all sticking out the top of them. And there's space creatures all moving about that you need to avoid. So you either walk under them or use your jetpack and go over them, which is quite bloody tricky, shall I say, to do it. But once you get used to that mechanic, you can get a lot further. It just takes a bit of practice. There's not much else to the game apart from it's not level based, it's flip screen, okay, but your air does run out and you have to make a decision. It's risk and reward. Do I plug that next leak or do I go back up to the air container and replenish my air supplies, or you'll bloody well die. But it's really addictive, and to be honest, I think it's quite an arcade game on the Electron that didn't exist in the arcades.
Yeah, it was definitely it was good fun. It kind of annoyed me a little bit just how quickly your air ran out. So you really did not get a lot of a chance to plug many gaps, because even when you go, from the first level to the second and it flips screen, you kind of think, oh well, that's great. I've just got off this screen. There'll be some air to get. Oh no, you've got to get all the way back to the top on the next screen, which involves navigating past some of the aliens and doing stuff. And before you know it, your air's run out again and you've blown up. And you have to be careful with your air as well, because if you hold down for too long and take in too much air, you blow up as well and die.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's right. So don't be too greedy, or you'll
you'll pop again.
Yeah, I know. You know what? I think it stands out. I think it's its own thing, and that's what I like about it on the Electron. That it's kinda aesthetically, as I said, Space Planet, but it's its own thing, and that's what I really enjoyed about it. Just love the graphics. It really stands out. I love the games that taunt you to stay longer. You know what I mean? And
I can just fix this one leak. I can get this leak and I'll get the next one and
bugger it up. I like games like that, because then it's your own fault and your own decision that you buggered up, not the fault of the game. And to me, that makes a good playability in that respect. So really, really, really enjoy this. I only came via this through emulation, not played it with my friends, but it was a couple of years ago. Just I'm bored, I'll fire up a system, try this up, and I came across this. I mean, wow, this is the game I would have if I owned the system back in the day. So for that respect, it needs to be mentioned.
Oh yeah, it was good fun. I didn't have this on tape, don't have it as a memory in terms of something I played back in the day, but it was good fun. Yes, nice little touches at the top of the screen there as well. You can see in the distance planet Earth, so you're...
This is planet F. Ba, 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 ba. Sorry, mate. I'm random. You're going to get used to that. Absolutely.
That's good. So yeah, it was good. It was a good little fun game. Bit frustrating in places, but a decent number of sprites on the screen, and had a good amount of fun with this one.
Cool. It shows though our tastes are very different in games we want to represent for the Electron.
That's true.
And that's a good thing. I mean, you're a fighter. You're just a violent man. Guns and fists and punches and kicks. Stay away from him. Yes, he'll kick the shit out of you.
I'm seeing that. I'm kind of seeing that now, haven't I? So I've got poor old Pengi throwing blocks around and squishing people. Yie Are Kung Fu and Whale Exploding Fist fighting folk.
How are you pronouncing Yie Are Kung Fu again?
Yie Are Kung Fu.
Hear that, Drusky, right?
That's how it's said, I think. I don't know.
Okay. Your turn, mate. What are you choosing next?
Okay, so on to my last choice, which is Citadel. This was 1986, and another one by Superior Software. This is not one that I had a real recollection for. I don't think some of the characters or some of the sprites definitely had some familiarity with them.
There's games similar. That's the issue.
Yeah, some of the sprites. I think it was almost like I think the one that jumped at me straight away was on like 2 screens in. I think you see like a cow's head on the wall, and it reminded me just of like Bruce Lee game, that type of thing, or some of the targets and hypersports and stuff that were little icons in there. So anyway, that was the graphic style of this thing. So again, really colourful, really bright, maybe vibrant. I don't know. Let's not say that again. But it also again, it also had top and bottom that sort of very weird pixelated stuff, which I don't know if it was part of the game or if that was just
even on YouTube videos. That's what you see.
Yeah, it seems to be there all the time.
Yeah.
I think so. So I think it did exist, but something to definitely. I did actually buy recently a little tape player with an SD card solution for the Acorn as well, so you can extract the UEF files.
Okay.
So I'll maybe put a link for that for you to the show notes as well.
Cool.
And you can put an SD card into this little gadget, and it has the audio out, which you can plug in as though it was a tape player,
Yeah.
and actually load any game you wanted. So I'm planning to do that with a few of these as well now that that's there.
Cool.
Okay, so back to Citadel. So somebody, a nasty man called Marduk, the dictator, has established a base in an old deserted castle, and his slaves have built a teleport machine, and he's about to teleport an alien invasion force.
Aliens
To destroy planet Earth. So your mission is to destroy the planet. No, your mission is to destroy the teleport system before it's too late. And you do that. You've got to find 5 crystals in the game and take them, annoyingly, one by one. You can't take all 5 at once, but you've got to find one by one and take them to an island. And yeah, it's a massive game, navigating a castle full of aliens, trampolines, and magical items. What do you remember about this one?
It's unique to the BBC and Electron, these type of platformers that you just did not get on the Spectrum when I was growing up, okay? And you know why it is? I thought about it. It's when you play the Spectrum and you move from one screen to the next, if it's a flat screen game, you know you've moved on to the next screen. But these games, when you move on to the next screen, it just feels like a continuation from the screen before, if that makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. More so on this system than any other system. And that's what I like. It just felt massive. It felt sprawling. And I love the design, the zaniness of the level design. It's addictive. It has exploratory elements. It has locked out elements. You need to get keys and other objects to get past things. Dangerous creatures to bypass. This to me is what 8-bit platforming is. It's like Montezuma's Revenge, which is the best 8-bit multi-screen platformer that's ever existed, and that obviously came out in the Atari 8-bit systems. I mean, even better, I think Montezuma's is far better than Jet Set Willy, and Jet Set Willy is way up there, you know. But Jet Set Willy's using the Manic Miner engine, and you get what you expect on this. These games play like a different beast. And that's why they stand out. And I was always envious, completely envious of games of this nature, because you don't get them on any other system apart from these kind of BBC or Acorn. Let's just call them Acorn systems. That's probably the best way to describe it. I think it stands out and it's absolutely wonderful. I love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah.
There's some really nice little puzzles in there as well, right? So, which I didn't know about until I kind of read about these things. So, you know, you've got to put a fire out somewhere. So, of course, you take a bucket to the ocean and fill it with some water and come back and put the fire out. Or you take roast chicken and put it on a fire somewhere else and you cook it. And you take that roast chicken to a guard of a wolf that's guarding a place so you can get past it to get things. So, very much sort of a click and collect and pick things up and use them.
I mean, these are way before Dizzy came out. These elements. I mean, we've seen it in Pajama Rama.
I would say that's right. Very similar to, I guess, Dizzy. That would be a good way to describe it.
Yeah, that's a good choice. I mean, it's beautiful graphically. I think I don't want lo-fi platformers for me really stand out. There's something incredible about them. I think it's because it takes me back when I was first lured into these machines and falling in love with games, and these were the kind of games that people had, and you saw them and you were envious and it's like, oh, I want that game, but you can't get it, and can't I find a game that offers that same kind of thing? No, it's bespoke for these systems and good for the Electron for this. It's
good. I'm glad you enjoyed this one.
Oh, I absolutely enjoyed it. Okay, mate, on to our final game of the episode. And it's back to my choice.
What did you choose?
Corporate Climber. He laughs because this man lives in the corporate world. He's way up. He's trying to rise the ranks, kill people and get there. No, Corporate Climber is a bit like Nifty Lifty by Vision Software, but this one was released by Dynamite in 1984. Now, I don't know if it's a kind of metaphor in this game or whatnot, but the basic premise of this game is it's a left to right arcade game where there's just arseholes in elevators moving up and down, and you have to avoid them as you move to the right. You go up a level, and then you have to avoid them moving to your left and up and zigzag all the way up to the top, to the toilet, to have a good jobby. That is the game, right? What a fantastic game. That you grip it for a shite and you need to get up there. I mean, surely the toilet's on the ground floor, but I don't know.
It's like you're moving up in the corporate world, isn't it? It's like the upper echelons, and you've gone to the marble toilet that's only there for the executives.
Yeah, the ascension to the top. That's the whole point. So like Nifty Lifty, it's very simple. There's just objects to collect to give you points scattered about the different levels, but it's all about avoiding the elevators that continuously move up and down all the time. Would I say it's a little slow paced? Yes, because it's equivalent Nifty Lifty that I keep saying is not. But I loved this game. I still thought it was great, and it's just memories tied in with it. It's probably nostalgia more than anything. But I mean, I'll ask the man himself, the Acorn man himself. What do you think of this?
I thought it was an interesting game.
Oh my God! What a corporate answer.
Oh, I don't know. It's terrible, isn't it? There's too many floors per each level. That's what did my head in.
Too many, yeah.
It's too many. It just took forever. I was always panicking. You get a bonus, which is counting down pretty quickly, and that bonus is just for that one floor that you're on.
Yes.
But goodness me, there must be about 12 floors, in terms of the lines on the screen that you have to get up each one, and it does take a long time. And you've got I think it's your BP, your blood pressures.
I've never ascertained what the blood pressure actually does, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure what makes it go. I'm not sure what makes it go up, but certainly if it gets to the top, then you lose a life and you die. And I think it's hilarious when you get to the top of the toilet and then the shutter rolls down because you're obviously about to do your business. It's like,
the shutter for
God.
a shitter.
So I mean, it's colourful. It's fairly quick, but it's just the sprites are moving nicely, and they're quick on the screen. But yeah, it just takes a long time to even just get off the first screen.
I love the little briefcase that the guy's carrying as well.
Yeah, that was fun.
I have fond memories. Just simply, it's a simple game from
very
simple
simple,
times.
very simple.
Yeah, it's when rules were still being written for the games, and but then as the further you progress, it's like, well, did they predict global warming or something? That water levels are rising on each level? Because did you notice that
the water level starts to rise in the bottom.
Yeah, what's that about? What's the metaphor?
Another problem with the toilet, maybe. I don't know. It's backing up. Who knows?
Oh, well, that's your fault, not mine. If you went there and you blocked it, take ownership, mate.
So yeah, I guess maybe reminiscent there of Rainbow Islands or something with the water levels coming up. But I didn't quite follow why. What was going on there?
It's just there anyway.
Yeah, it's just there.
Yeah. So anyway, that's us at the end of our chosen list of games, and I hope people will fire some up and give them a go, because it's not a often spoken about system, and it deserves the love, like every 8-bit computer. As we always say, I just love games on every system. Want to try them all, see what they're like, experience them. Some are rubbish, some are great. It's all about that. Have a laugh with it, even if it is rubbish, even if it is crap. Just celebrate the period of time where there was no rule books. It wasn't very corporate. It wasn't as much suits controlling what games we saw. It's a very different period. It was all independent, to be honest. So, yeah, I mean, hats off, Al, to the Acorn Electron. It's just another fantastic machine.
Brilliant
Absolutely,
little machine, and I hope folks give it a try. I hope, we're going to give a couple of links as well to two of the emulators that are out there. Both have their pluses and minuses, and don't work with every game, unfortunately. But
but there's one we wanted to include,
some.
Wasn't there? Camelot, an absolute superb game, visually stunning, and one emulator wouldn't play it. One emulator played it with awful sound that made your ears bleed.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so the only way to experience it yet is on the BBC Micro, as far as I am aware. But what a great platforming game that is as well. Really visually impressive. That is like, wow.
Yeah.
It shows off the Electron, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It was good.
So what about other honourable mentions for yourself, mate, then? What you got?
Well, Chucky Egg. Need to mention Chucky Egg, obviously.
You do.
That was one of the games that we did have back in the day. So brilliant game. I think a lot of love with it as well within the RGDS crew as well, right? I
adore
know
it.
the listeners
Yeah.
with Steve Smith's Chucky Egg Online as well that we've been playing. So yeah, that was one that really stood out for me as well. I know it was on other platforms as well, but for me, the Acorn was where that one was at.
Yeah. No, it's a great version. It's close to the BBC version. Some people argue that the BBC version, or equally then, Electron version, is the best version. I'm not going to get into these debates. It's the only version I don't like is the Commodore version. The other versions are absolutely superb.
Yeah, it's got a funny jumping arc from what I remember. The rest of them, I think I've played BBC and Acorn, and to me they are close enough that I think of them with the same fondness, I think. So that was one. And another one which I mentioned probably at the beginning is when we started chatting was Elite. So I know this is not one of your favourites, but and I'm not banging about it too much, but when I first got this, I was absolutely amazed. 3D polygon wire graphics, space, the vastness, the radar. First time I'd ever seen anything like that at all. And, a game that loads of folk go on about, so I wasn't going to include that as one of the games to talk about because it's had a lot of airtime. But yeah, that was one that I had very fond memories of that one as well.
How many hours do you think you put into it?
Oh my gosh, far too many.
Yeah.
Far too many. I mean, I've played it in the 16 bits as well, and since I backed their Elite Dangerous through Kickstarter several years ago as well, so I've actually backed that at quite, I think I had such love for the game, I backed it at quite a high tier, so I have that game and all new releases for life, which is a good thing.
Oh, excellent.
How often have I played it? Maybe 3 hours of the new one.
Puts into
Not enough time in the
perspective,
day.
doesn't it? Oh,
Not enough time.
childhood
back in the day,
is an important
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And I think, I maybe got mildly dangerous.
Is that a thing?
Something like that.
Shows
What
how
about
much
yourself? What about yourself? I know Elite for you wasn't a big thing, but what other honourable mentions do you have?
I've got one, mate. It's 3D dotty. It's a bit like Crystal Castles, right? But
Okay.
It's not as pretty, to say the least. But it's the ladders and levels. It's on different things. It's an isometric thing. You've got to collect all the dots. But you know what? It looked crap, but that's all we had. And yeah, again, the bright visuals. There's something about the aesthetics of the Electron that just looked incredible, and I had great fun playing it. And it's all we had. Didn't have a trackball. Didn't have Crystal Castles at all times, even though I had it down my local arcades. It gave me that vibe, if you want, and that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it's very, very reminiscent of Crystal Castles, isn't it, in terms of picking stuff up and multi-leveled.
Yeah. So, I mean, in fact, it gave more layers upon Crystal Castles in that way. But there's an endless list, and I'm sure listeners that owned an Electron would be saying this game, that game, and yeah, there is. Just fire into the catalogue, enjoy it, and experience an old 8-bit computer that is like no other one you perhaps played, because each one was independent in its own thing, and that's what makes it magical. Another fantastic 8-bit Underdog. So yeah,
Couldn't have said it better.
so folks, this is our last episode of the year. There is no Christmas episode. Drisky is already ordering the elves on their sleighs to deliver the retro goods to everyone else. So we're shutting our doors, we're having a holiday, having a break, we're burnt out, we're tired, we're knackered, we need some eggnog, whatever else. But we will see everyone in the new year with more episodes, including more, 8-bit and Underdog ones amongst everything else. We've got lots planned, always lots simmering away, concepts, all the rest. It's going to be good fun. So we shall see everyone in the new year. Have a Merry Christmas. And Al, thank you for joining me in this one. It was great fun to have you. It was really enjoyable. And I'm sure there's other ones we can drag you into and have a little laugh over.
That's great. Well, thanks for having me again. It was great to go down memory lane and talk about my first computer and share a bunch of great games with folks. So yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone.
Right, see you all later. Bye.
Bye.